most was the people who could not get across the bridge to Gretna. They could drive across the bridge, but they couldn't walk across. So it's certainly...
Okay, folks, I'd like to introduce to you the Executive Director of the Oregon Peaceworks, the MC for tonight, Peter Burdell.
Good evening, and thank you very much for coming this evening. It's great to see a bunch of people out here to see the person who really needs to be the next President of the United States. Am I right? This is a man I think we've all been very impressed with. But before we get to him, we have a few local folks that we're going to be hearing from this evening. People that are doing the work here in your community that Dennis Kucinich wants to do at the national level. So I think we need to give them a good bit of attention. We need to give them a lot of support. And we need to vote for them with our feet, the same way as we're going to vote for Kucinich when we get the chance. So first of all, let me call up here David Delk, the co-chair of the Alliance for Democracy. David? Not only has he been the co-chair of the Alliance for Democracy, but he's also worked on campaign finance reform, something that's desperately needed. Before I hand over the microphone to David, I want to also thank those folks from Code Pink. They're doing some wonderful work in this community. Wonderful work. The seriously pissed off grannies have gotten arrested at the recruiting session. Yeah, right on. Have been arrested down at the recruiting center, and they've been working for us all. But right now, would you please welcome David Delk.
Thank you. It is really, really great to see this many people. When we were planning this, we were hoping that maybe we would just fill the front part of the auditorium. We'd be really excited. But we filled all of that, and we've got a big audience up there in the auditorium. It's just fantastic. First of all, I wanted to welcome everyone here and tell you how glad I really am to see all of you here. This is really exciting. I also want to ask right now for everyone to look in your pockets, your purses, or whatever, and find a rose for me. I didn't drink mine. To find a pen and a piece of paper, because I'm going to give you an 800 toll-free number. Toll-free number. Okay, here, a little practice, I'm going to get this. A toll-free number that you can call to Congress on their dime, or someone's dime. I'm not sure who's providing this number, but I'm going to give it to you at the end, and I hope that you'll all call, both on the issues I'm going to talk about, and whatever else strikes your fancy. There is so much to talk with our Congress about right now. So, at a recent public debate, including all of the Democratic presidential candidates, Dennis Kucinich was the only one to address the major economic issue in America, indeed in the world today, the issue of globalization and free trade agreements.
Yeah. Only one that's got it.
He called on the U.S. to withdraw from corporate-written free trade agreements like the WTO, NAFTA, and CAFTA. Since Bill Clinton opened the floodgates of corporate globalization, a continuous flow of new agreements have been enacted. These agreements span the globe from Central America to the Middle East to Africa, Asia, and South America, including countries as close as Mexico and Canada, and as far-flung as Chile, Australia, Morocco, and Oman, among others. Currently, the Bush administration has negotiated new agreements with Peru, Panama, Colombia, and Korea. Agreements which are signed but not yet approved by the U.S. Congress. These agreements have had extremely negative effects on the environment, on the rights and living conditions of labor, and on democracy itself. In fact, the very process by which these are enacted is undemocratic. Following the Vietnam War, President Nixon was granted fast-track authority for negotiating free trade, or actually just for negotiating trade agreements. By enacting fast-track authority, Congress gave up its rights and its duties to the executive branch, rights and duties which the Constitution expressly gives to Congress alone. The Founding Fathers gave Congress the power to, quote, regulate commerce with foreign nations. To facilitate the writing of trade agreements, Congress has given up their right and their responsibility. In the Nixon days, trade agreements were about traditional trade issues like import and export quotas and tariff rates. That's certainly not the case today. Now it's jobs. Today, trade agreements touch on every aspect of American life and indeed on the very nature of democracy itself. Fast-track authority allows the President to negotiate trade agreements with almost no input from Congress, or the states, or the cities, or from American citizens. While we, the people, are excluded from the process, corporate representatives and lobbyists belly right up to the table. Having negotiated the agreement is signed by the President. Trade agreements are the only agreements which are signed before Congress has approved. Then the President gets to decide when the agreement will be presented to Congress. Because of fast-track authority, Congress has very limited amount of time to debate the agreement. Fast-track authority does not even allow the agreement to be amended. So through the entire process, the President and the executive branch control the negotiations, control who has input into the content of the agreement, controls when Congress will consider the agreement, and then restricts Congress from having full debate and discussion of the agreement. Congressional debate and amendment of legislation lies at the very heart of the American democratic process, except when we consider free trade agreements. But here's the good news. There is good news. That's it. That's the good news. Thank you, Robert Reed. Fast track expired today. Good news. Let's see, where am I? Fast track. Congress again has full authority to regulate the commerce of the United States with foreign nations. The last time Congress enacted fast track authority, it did it for a 5-year period, and that 5-year period ended today. We must now ensure that fast track authority is never enacted again. We must ensure that Congress fulfills its constitutional authority to regulate our international commerce. We must ensure that all the interests of the American people, including the interests of states and cities, of labor and of environmentalists are included in the writing of all future agreements. Now I have a little more bad news. President Bush, thumbs down, but he's still there. President Bush wants to extend fast-track authority, and there are various proposals being floated right now to do that. Unfortunately, Oregon's Democratic congressional delegation has many times supported multinational-based corporate elites by voting for these free trade agreements and for fast-track authority. In fact, I am told that Representative Blumenauer is the point person to get environmental organizations on board with a secret trade deal which includes fast-track authority. Yeah. We need someone to run against him. We have a volunteer in the front row. Okay, now I'm getting that phone number. So do you have your pens ready? Okay, the number is 1-800-828-0498. So today, now, tomorrow, the next day, call your representative and your senator. Tell them you support democratic processes in the negotiation of trade agreements. Tell them they should vote no on any and all proposals that include fast-track authority.
What's that number again?
Thank you for asking. That number is 828-0498. 800-828-0498. That will connect you to the receptionist at Congress. You ask for your representative or whoever you want to talk to. And I tried it this morning, and it's a good number, I know it is. So please make the call. Thank you very much.
And at this point, we're going to have one more speaker before the congressman, and that will be Lambert Holstein of the Alliance for Democracy, who's going to talk about an issue that I know is very close to Congressman Kucinich's heart, and that is getting enough satisfactory health care for all the people in this country who don't have enough. That's 47 million Americans. Lambert Holstein.
Good evening. The issue is universal single-payer health care for all. The health care in this country is suffering and in need of a transfusion because we already pay for it, but we do not receive it. We have left it to the marketplace to provide health care as we watch double-digit inflation explode the cost. Some basic facts. Our health care is based on the ability to pay. Why? Our Social Security system is not. We pay tax on the first dollar earned. We are 35th in longevity. We are 37th in the World Health System as ranked by the World Health Organization. In 1999, infant mortality ranked 28th, higher than some third world countries. We have the most expensive healthcare system in this world, spending twice as much as other developed nations. This system still leaves, I have 46, Peter just said 47 million people uninsured. I stand corrected. In 1992, the CEO of the Health Corporation of America had a salary of $132 million in 1992. 1992. And that did include perks and bonuses. A fact not well known. Those without health insurance usually are charged more by the hospitals and physicians than those with insurance. And that really turns the so-called ability to pay on its head. Insurance companies provide no care, yet they take 17 to 25% profit off the top. Business provided insurance places unnecessary hardship on their ability to be competitive. When Congress approved Medicare in 1965, the plan was first to insure the older people, then incrementally insures everyone else. That was over 40 years ago. And the only ones still insured are the senior citizens. The question of whether to insure incrementally is long past debating. We do not need to continue with Band-Aid solutions, and we must stop focusing on the problems the other countries have with their healthcare systems, such as so-called rationing. Rationing with 46 million people uninsured, isn't that what we already have? Yeah. And dropping the statement, there are flaws, from our vocabulary is a start. Of course there will be flaws. Which system doesn't have them? But we can work on the solutions, beginning by de-corporatizing healthcare. The good news. A health plan, H.R. 676, written by presidential candidate Dennis Kucinich. And Congressman John Conyers covers healthcare needs. Dental care, mental health, vision care, prescription drugs, and long-term care. H.R. 676 is supported by 78 congressional members, more than 260 local unions, 14,000 physicians, and is endorsed by the New Hampshire House of Representatives. This plan is publicly financed, privately delivered, and allows the medical profession to practice medicine. We can't elect a president who understands why this country is so sick and wants to lead us to wellness. A candidate who promotes single-payer health care, and a candidate who voted to oppose invading Iraq. War is the ultimate sickness. Nothing is as harmful to the health of the world as war. A nation that cares not for the evil war brings cannot care for the health of its people. We must have a moral concern, the political will, a caring lens with a sharp focus, a wisdom to believe our hearts, because a generous heart has been absent in this debate about health care. As William Hassel wrote over 200 years ago, we have not only to talk, but to act. Enough talking. Let us work to elect Dennis Kucinich as president.
That's right. Let's work to elect this man. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could have somebody in the White House that we could really be proud to say, I voted for that person? Wouldn't it feel good? How many people remember a time in their lives when they felt that way? That's what I thought. All right, moving right along right now. We're going to have the Vice Chair of the Multnomah County Democratic Party. She's going to tell you a little bit about moving from the war paradigm to the peace paradigm, and then she's going to introduce our main speaker for this evening. Would you please welcome right now, Casey Hanson.
I have been told to be real quick, both from backstage and for you all. 60 years ago, fireballs erupted over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and we discovered we were already in the end game. So it's an imperative right now that we create a paradigm of peace. The candidate who is about to come up here is the candidate of peace. Like no other candidate that has stood before you. He doesn't give you talking points. He doesn't say, quote, trite little phrases like, well, everything's on the table. He is adamant about peace. Are you ready to hear about peace, Portland? Are you ready to hear from the congressman, the statesman that stands for peace?
to Mr. and Mrs. Kucinich from the Rose City, I'm going to give you this wonderful red rose that represents all the folks here and all the folks who couldn't make it today. Thank you very much for being here. Members of the press, please go over there afterwards if you would like to participate in a quick press conference with Congressman Kucinich. And now, without further ado, Congressman Dennis Kucinich.
Moment to be in this community. A community, and I love you, a community which has a real connection to nature and to natural beauty. And we understand that we are at a time in human history where we are called upon to take a stand, not just for peace, but to take a stand which challenges those conditions that have brought about global warring and global warming, because the two are joined together, and it's our plan to lay peace, sustainability, security, prosperity, and create a new nation and a new world. Are you ready? Are you ready? This last week has been the last 10 days have been very encouraging for our campaign. The first thing that happened is that we finally were able to demonstrate in the national polls. NBC had us come out from nothing to 3%, a point behind two of the contenders. So we're finally, as I said on David Letterman's show, how many of you saw Letterman's show? As I said on David Letterman, now we're just outside the margin of error. We can prove that we exist. I think you remember, I think, therefore I am. Okay, you vote, therefore I am, okay? And we had a candidates debate at Howard University. And in that candidates debate, the analysis that was done after the debate, many of the people who scored that debate said there was one candidate who won the debate, and that was me. And I want to tell you, all I need is the same time as everyone else. When this message gets a chance to be heard, people know what they want. And we had a great response yesterday in Orlando at the Latin elected officials. Naleo. It was a wonderful response. I gave a 2-minute speech in Spanish and talked about how we can lift up this nation with the power of the human spirit, with the power of the human heart. People are waiting, not just to be inspired, they're waiting for a positive program which connects us to our highest aspirations. For too long, we've been driven into a condition of fear. We've been driven into fear that attempts to control people, fear that attempts to take away the resources of this country and put them into war, fear that tries to take away our civil liberties, and we're ready to lift the fear off this country. We're ready. We're ready. We're ready to recapture what it means to be American. The courage, who we are. With the 4th of July coming in a few days, those of us who have been challenging this country's direction, it can be a time of a lot of mixed thinking about America. But with this fear that's covered this country, I always think back to the Star-Spangled Banner and what Francis Scott Key wrote. Because it really, at this time of the year, it's so important that we think about it. Think about these lines for a minute. Does that Star-Spangled Banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? He made the connection between freedom and bravery, between democracy and courage. When you look at this flag which in some ways has been misused by an administration that pitch this country into a war based on lies. When you look at this flag and you think of the higher principles that stood behind the love that people have for this country, and you think about the courage that so many people have expressed because they love this country, and you realize that all we have to do to be able to take our country back is to show the kind of courage that was anticipated when this country was founded, the kind of courage that those who put this country together knew that all those who followed would have to have and may be called upon at a moment to demonstrate in defense of our basic liberties. So, does that Star-Spangled Banner yet wave? Or the land of the free and the home of the brave? Yeah! Are we going to take back our nation? Yeah! See, this is the beauty of this country. Because as we live peace and security and prosperity, we then know we can reject the entire basis that has formed this government that currently exists of war, fear, and poverty. And we see the connection, and what this campaign is about. It's about standing for the truth. It's about being able to challenge the corruption that underlies what's wrong with America today. Let's look at the links, okay? War, oil, corruption. One, okay? So that's one. War, oil, corruption. We have war because of a corrupt government which is all about oil. Let's look at the next connection here. Lack of health care. Private insurers controlling our health care system. Corruption. That's the link. Think about that for a minute. I want you to think about the connection there. Lack of health care for 1 out of every 3 Americans. Private insurance controlling our health care system. And at the root of it is corruption. And then you think about so many people out of work or not having the jobs that they once had. And you think about NAFTA. Okay? It was about corruption. It was about a race to the bottom of wages and even about slave labor. And so if you look at the immigration issue, at the root of the immigration issue is corruption. It's the use of slave labor and exploitation of people. So, does any of that represent who we are? No. Now, this is a moment. What this election is about. This is a moment about explaining who we are. The deeper meaning of we the people. The deeper meaning of a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. You know, picture that American eagle soaring and transforming into a dove with the same red, white, and blue colors, carrying this country to a new definition of who we can be, moving away from a nation that puts itself above nations to being a nation among nations, to working with the world community, to understanding peace as being central to a statement of who we are. And so we connect peace with our relations with the world. We connect peace with our sense of daily life in America. There's something about Benson Polytechnic that is so important to have this meeting. Because what Benson speaks to is diversity. And it shows how you can create such a tremendous potential for educating our children through making an opportunity available to people of diverse backgrounds. Our nation's first motto, E pluribus unum, out of many one, spoke to a definable principle for America, one where we celebrated our diversity. For some reason, We've become separate from that, and you know what it's done? It's separated us from the world. That first motto of ours was our destiny. Think about it. It wasn't just some flat line about an old America. Out of many, one. It is our destiny, not just about the collection of states, but it's about human unity. It's about all people being one. It's about an understanding that we all are on this planet sharing a common destiny. And when you have a president who understands that, he can go to the nations of the world and he can stand for peace, and we can work with the world community to achieve peace. And we must do that. We must believe in our capacity to do that. And we must come from the heart, which means we reject these dead doctrines of preemption, unilateralism, first strike that separate us from the world community. We must get rid of all nuclear weapons. This is the moment in human history that we must reject war as an instrument of policy. Getting out of Iraq, this is about moving away from the thinking that took us into Iraq in the first place. Because think about it, those who say that they're for peace and vote to fund a war, those who say that they're for peace and say of Iran, all options are on the table, those who vote, those who say that they're for peace, and rattle sabers with Russia and other nations, we must ask if, in fact, their thinking has changed, or whether or not they would just simply lead America in the same kind of faulty direction that takes us away from our higher destiny. We're at a moment in human history where we must connect with our higher destiny again. We must remember what America's mission is in the world. It is not to be a nation above nations, it's to be the light of nations. And I insist that we have nothing less than that, to cause this nation to be true to its higher expression of principle and make peace a basis for who we are. We can do that. It's who we are. There are some who will hear that and they say, oh, how impractical. How naive. You know that war is inevitable, Dennis. We've all heard that, you know, when you start talking about peace. But let me share something with you. I want you to think about this for a moment. If we ever needed an object case on the impracticality of war, I mean, really, think about it. If we ever wanted to prove that war is not inevitable, we need only to look at the circumstances that we've learned about since the war in Iraq started to learn what a great tragedy this has been, because in addition to the tragedy of the loss of lives of our soldiers, in addition to the tragedy, the deep human tragedy of 1 million innocent Iraqis being killed, in addition to the tragedy of trillions of dollars of our tax dollars being lost, in addition to the tragedy of the separation from the world community, is the tragedy that repeats itself of the thinking that says, you know, war's inevitable. We just can't avoid it. And so this presidency will be about achieving a shift of thinking, which looks at the difficulties we have. We certainly want security, but understands that we're at a moment in human history where we're called upon to demonstrate our capacity to settle our differences without killing each other. And so I see peace as being linked to a programmatic approach. which means, and many of you are familiar with the program, to create a cabinet-level Department of Peace and Nonviolence. To quote one of our favorite singers, you may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. There are 62 members of Congress who have signed on to the proposal. This is a national movement with communities organized, including in Portland, all over this country, people organized. And why? Because we understand that violence has gripped our homes. Domestic violence, spousal abuse, child abuse. It's gripped our schools. Violence in the school, gun violence, gang violence, racial violence, violence against gays, police community clashes. And you know what? We all know in our heart of hearts, that's not really who we are. That we have a higher expression, ready to just come forward. And the idea of the Department of Peace is to organize an approach through education and through supporting groups that are already doing this to make the defining purpose of our nation nonviolence. That was the dream of Dr. King and the teachings of Gandhi and Christ, and we try to live those every day. Imagine if that becomes a defining purpose of our country. Imagine if making peace becomes a practical way to approach everyday relations where we teach children how to deal with their feelings, how to settle the difference with another person, nonviolent conflict resolution, peer mediation. Some of that's going on in schools. See, when we believe in our capacities, and when we have leadership that calls that forward, suddenly the transformation occurs. So this is a moment that we actually get a chance to be those people we say we've been waiting for. And each one of us has that chance. And so you have the opportunity to join in this effort, to create this transformation in this country. And I'm asking you to participate in this effort to do so. It's about peace. It's about healthcare, which is peace of mind. You know, as I stand here, and Michael Moore recognized this 2 weeks ago, and I'm the only one running for president who says no to for-profit health insurance, running on health insurance. It's time to have a universal, single-payer, not-for-profit healthcare system. It is time. We join McCain leading America into action. Can we move this great heart of Portland across the country? Every American knows it's possible. It is possible. I can feel the energy here in Portland. We can change this country. Thank you. You know, I feel what you're saying, I hear what you're saying. You know what I can't understand for the life of me is when candidates for president stand up in national forums and they say, well, yeah, it would be good if we could have that kind of a system, but you know what? We have to be practical. As a practical matter, we're not going to be able to get this through the Congress, so let's think of something that works. Such as, you know, providing subsidies for the private insurers. I mean, this isn't, but see, here's where we're at. People running for president are saying, you know, they just can't take on those private insurance interests. They're just too powerful. That wasn't me, but whoever it was, thank you. This is quite a place. And so, but when you think about it, you think that if someone wants to be president of the United States, and even before they take office, they're already capitulating to the for-profit insurance companies. Oh, look out. Look out. And so what I'm saying is this. I know who you are. I know what your dreams are. I know what your hopes are. I know what your aspirations are for your families and for your communities. And I know that when we rally the American people, in this cause of making sure that everyone has health care and that we end this for-profit healthcare system, you know what? We're going to have Medicare for all. We're going to have a national health care plan. We can do this. And I'll do it as your president. I'll lead the way. I'll lead the way. again, you know, the thing about this campaign, when people have a chance to study all the candidates, they see how what we stand for is so different than all the others. And no issue is it more glaring than the issue of trade. I've said this in national forums, and I'll share it with you here. Traveling across this country over the last few years, I have stood behind locked plant gates where there's grass growing in the parking lots, where there used to be hundreds, even thousands of cars parked, where people used to make steel, where they used to make aircraft parts, where they used to make cars, where they used to make washing machines, where they used to make bicycles. And now there's grass growing in the parking lots. And there's only one reason why this has happened at an accelerated rate in this country. And that's because over a dozen years ago, an administration told the American people that if you go along with this trade agreement, it's going to be great prosperity, more jobs, more progress. People bought it, and then we saw the opposite happen. I have said, and I want you to know, that there is nothing more important to me than making sure that people have jobs, and that they have a decent living, and that they have the right to organize, collective bargaining. And for that reason, one of my first acts in office will be to cancel NAFTA and the WTO. We set the rules of trade, and trade will then, we're going to set new rules of trade, and the trade will be based on the following. You want to trade with the United States? Fine. We want to trade with you. But you're going to have trade in your country based on principles of workers' rights, human rights, and environmental quality. About this in terms of Mexico, because remember when NAFTA passed, you saw an acceleration of people leave Mexico and run across the border because wages collapsed in Mexico. When NAFTA was being promoted in Mexico, workers were told their wages were going to go up. They went down. The peso collapsed. Mexico was devastated by NAFTA. So people were desperate to support their families. There was a flood across the border. We're going to negotiate a new trade agreement with Mexico, and it's going to be based on workers' rights, the right to organize, the right to collective bargain, the right to strike, the right to decent wages and benefits, the right to secure retirement, the right to be able to participate in the political process. We have to make that a basis of commerce between countries. When you do that, you lift people up. You lift nations up. When you don't do that, you have a race to the bottom, wages drop, benefits disappear, pensions are gone. This is a defining issue in this election, and I think that trade and peace relate to each other. No question about it. Thank you. And I feel from this community, this wonderful community of Portland, the kind of energy that's in this room, let me tell you, there's energy like this all over the country. And when we bring it together, we will reclaim our country. We will establish a country that's worthy of the values that people always imbued in that flag and in the symbols of America. We're going to reclaim America. We're going to make this once again a government for the people. Thank you very much. through them as quickly as I can. Hi.
Come on down, Brother Kucinich. Kucinich, Brother Kucinich, I tell you, I know that you are a union man because 2 years ago I saw your union card. I am a 64-year union person, and I want to say it's a real honor again, after seeing you 2 years ago, that I am able to be on my feet and once again come and shake your hand and give you a hell of a hug. I am telling my husband now, you are the only man in Congress that could put his shoes under my bed. For 30 years now, this pin that I'm going to pin on you is a single-payer health care pin. It has a union bug on it. Yeah. And I'm sick and tired of the insurance industries making money off of the sick. And so this is one of the reasons why I insist that you have to be the next president of the United States. Health care from the womb to the tomb. I'm like a cat with 9 lives. I don't know how many I've got left, but I insist that I'm going to continue pinning buttons like health care from the womb to the tomb, which is a human right, on people running for president like Brother Dennis Kucinich. Wife who let me stand up here and share a little fun.
Thank you. Okay, okay, we got it. Thanks. Okay, come on, let's go through the questions as quickly as we can.
Okay. Well, I definitely support your initiative 333, the impeachment of Dick Cheney.
I want all of you to know that we have more and more members who are joining. Jim McDermott from Washington State signed the other day. And so that everyone here knows, I want to get up to the stage so everybody can see me. Hold on. I'm going to ask you to remember this, that this to me isn't just about one person. This is about the sacred document known as our Constitution. That's what it's about. And we're going to protect our Constitution. Come on up here for the next question. Thank you. I got to keep moving. BAE, I know. Listen, BAE, we should investigate BAE in terms of Mr. Cheney. Come on in. Thank you. Next question.
It seems like the way to affect... I'm so pleased with that response, which makes it easier for me to offer my brilliant campaign advice. I think you should dye your hair blonde, get a big sheepdog named Rush, and hire a campaign manager named Mr. Wilson, since you used to be called Dennis the Menace when you were the boy manager.
Well, what I can tell you about that is we're getting close here. One of my big supporters in the Portland area is Jerry Wilson, so we're getting closer. Next question.
The change of consciousness in this country would be to focus on 9/11. Would you be interested in maybe reading one of the books of David Ray Griffin showing how the Bush administration orchestrated 9/11?
I read the first book that David Griffin put out. I want you to know, in my capacity as the chairman of the Domestic Policy Subcommittee, we've begun gathering information relating to a very narrow area, 9/11, the stock transactions. So we're looking at that right now. Yes. I don't know where it's going to go, but we are looking at it. And there's one other thought I want you to keep with you, and that is, we've been so scarred as a nation by 9/11. What I want our presidency to be about is reconnecting Americans with our highest aspirations of who we were before that tragedy. Now, we know the mythical dimensions of America, some of which are not very nice, but we also know there's a lot of things that relate to this country's greatness and its higher purpose, and our role in it as individuals, what our aspirations were as individuals, and who we were when we felt ourselves personally a sense of pride in our lives, or when we felt most secure. This is the kind of discussion that I want to have in reconnecting ourselves to who we were before 9/11. And Elizabeth has been instrumental in starting that process. So thank you. Next question.
Mr. Kucinich, it's an honor to meet you. I'd also like to say I'm convinced that September 11th was an inside job. Comment and then ask you to have you comment on this point, the poisoning of our political process, which in my estimation, the most poisonous thought is not just out there, it's in this room as well. It's the whole idea of electability, who is electable and who's not electable. And if people who tell me that Dennis Kucinich is not electable, I would like to address that point as being that if you say that someone is electable, all you're really saying is this person is either paid for by the corporations or they're able to buy their own campaign. If that's your idea of electability, then we continue with what we have, correct?
Well, let's put it to a test. How many people here say that I'm electable? I said, I'm electable if you vote for me, right? And the other thing is this, that this is the beginning of July. It's a long way to the first primaries and caucuses, and this campaign is on the move now. And people see it, and they see the difference. And you know what? It's not just that I'm ready, but you're ready too. The people across this country are ready. And there's one other thing that I want to mention while we're here that relates to electability. If you can participate through your financial assistance campaign, there you go, there it is again, and emphasis. And if you can help us raise money, if you can contribute, the maximum is $2,300, you can help us get our message out. We're about to launch an entirely new initiative in this campaign that's really going to be very exciting in terms of getting our message out. I've got a book coming out in September. We're working on a documentary and a movie about peace. We've got a lot of things we're ready to do, but we need your involvement. So help us with contributions. I want you also to help us with organizing door-to-door, because we're really going to canvass this state and also Washington State. You can help us there. You can help us. You have a special skill, research in an area, an issue you like. Go to Kucinich.us, sign up. We're organized. This is an organizing meeting of the Portland Kucinich campaign, and I just want to let you know, help us raise the funds. Can you help us raise some money? Go to the website, Kucinich.us. Pull the fundraiser, I'll be there. Thank you. Next question. Thank you.
Hi, I say this, you haven't seen my shirt yet.
Okay, it's something about the voting booth.
For most of my life I haven't voted. I did vote for you last time. In fact, I became a Democrat for a few months, and I'll do it again to be able to vote for you. Although I think the only thing I accomplished was I killed a bunch of trees because they sent me a bunch of mailers. Anyway, my question is unpleasant and difficult, but Is it correct that you were anti-choice until you ran for president the last time?
No.
Really? That's absolutely incorrect?
Well, you want me to explain?
Please.
Yeah. Like a lot of Americans, you know, I've always been torn by the abortion issue. And when I looked at it when I first got into Congress, I voted in a way for the first few years that suggested more of a concern about, you know, abortions, period. But then as I got, you know, the longer I got into Congress, it wasn't so much about Congress. It was about the fact that I had a daughter who was growing up. And as I talked to the women in my life, they kept counseling me, Dennis, you've got to find another way. You've got to find another way. So long before I became a candidate for president, I started, in my voting, I started to shift towards an understanding of the concerns of people who say, you know, this is an issue of privacy, this is an issue of a fundamental right that a woman has. And so what I've been able to do was to craft a position that I think can help heal this country. And here it is, that we must uphold the choice. It's fundamental. At the same time, we need to articulate a concern and a desire to support prenatal care, postnatal care, child care, universal health care, and all those things that are in a context for life to be supported. So I think what America's waiting for is a president who can understand the concerns that people have on one hand, and on the other hand say this is a fundamental right that women have. In a sense, you know, government shouldn't be about meddling in a private choice, but at the same time, government should create circumstances where people are given a wider range of choices. And I have three rescue dogs at home, so we'll tell you more about that later.
I'd like to thank you for your courage that you had for opening the door with getting Cheney out, which is what you're talking about with opening the door, because I think you're a courageous man. Out of all the politicians, I don't think a lot of them are. And my question is, will you be willing to implement a four-power solution between China, Russia, and India with the United States so we can get on this peace development program and economics that you talked about?
I think that it's important that we have a discussion with all the leading nations, but you know what? Our discussions with the leading nations cannot preclude other nations that may not have the same gross domestic product, that have the same concerns about being able to survive. So we need to, this administration is rattling the saber against Russia. We are setting up a perimeter around Russia from the west to the south in a way that's very aggressive. We're simultaneously borrowing money from China, and at the same time we're critical of their policies. It's interesting, the Chinese ambassador visited me about 6 months ago and told me there wasn't much of a dialogue between him and the administration. It's like the dialogue's been between corporate leaders in China and corporate leaders in America. I want to seek a close relationship with China so we can tell them our concerns about some of their policies and try to find a way to get them to join an initiative to clean up the environment. We need to go to India and tell India, look, we're going to move towards getting rid of nuclear weapons, and we want you to help us do that. We need to move towards all the countries in the world and have not just a four-power initiative, but a multi-dimensional, multinational cooperation with all the nations for peace and for disarmament. Thank you. Next question.
I just want to thank you for all the great work you've done, and I'm with you on everything for this new positive paradigm shift that we want to see in this country, including universal health care and getting our troops out of Iraq. And as you said, your campaign is a campaign of truth, and what I think is fundamental is to focus on the most crucial truth, the foundation of this entire regime, which they use as an excuse for the war in Iraq and for their domestic policies, which have completely destroyed our constitutional rights. And that's the truth about the elections, like Congressman John Conyers has brought to light and many others, and also with his report on Ohio. My question is, will you please bring to light the latest information in documentaries like 9/11 Press for Truth and David Ray Griffin's book, so that we can have it brought out to the mainstream and it taken out of the fringe. Otherwise, another act of state-sponsored terrorism may happen again, and I don't think we're going to get our rights back unless that happens.
Yeah, I would say that America is going to need to go through period of truth and reconciliation, and the only way we're going to be able to do that, to reconnect with ourselves and the world, is to be able to have a president who's willing to speak the truth. I'm already there. With your votes, I'll be in the White House to do it.
I just wondered if you would talk a little bit about the fallacy of corporate personhood that seems to get in the way of so much of our restoring elections, restoring the Constitution and the rule of law.
Well, I think it was a Santa Clara case in 1895 we're talking about. The question is, will there be a president who's willing to stand up for the people and challenge some of these corporate interests? Let me tell you what I intend to do. I think we need to reestablish the power of the people, which means reestablishing regulatory authority, making sure that the Securities and Exchange Commission protects individual investors, making sure that the Federal Communications Commission brings back the fairness doctrine, making sure that the Federal Elections Commission runs and helps to run honest elections, making sure that the Federal Trade Commission has a responsibility for looking at corrupt practices inside commerce, breaking up the monopolies in communication, in agriculture, and so many areas of our economy. So I think that we have to have a new relationship with corporate America. And on the other hand, what I want to do is this. I think that we have not even begun to tap our wealth-making potential in America. When you think about spending $1 to $2 trillion for war, and you think about how we could have taken that and put that into productive capacity, how many millions of jobs we could have created rebuilding water systems, sewer systems, schools, universities, ports. We're going to create a shift. We're going to create millions of new jobs. We're going to create jobs for what I call the works green administration, making the central purpose of our government sustainability, the greening of America. We haven't even begun to tap our wealth creation, moving away from poverty to prosperity, and that involves also a government that's strong enough to stand up to narrow corporate interests. And if there's one example, we all know it's the control that private insurance companies have over our healthcare system. My election's going to change that. Yes, next question. Okay, I've just been told we have time for 2 more questions.
I met you at the library a couple of years ago. It's a pleasure to see you again. About electability, are we going to let the co-opted corporate media tell us who's electable or not? Anyway, my question, if the Democratic Party does not do what we know in our hearts that they should do, would you consider running as an independent? Because we have the internet, look at the internet.
Well, I want everyone to follow this very carefully. I think that the people are ready right now, as the Democrats are ready for dramatic change. I'll give you an example. All over the country, we hear people being very upset about what's happened. Democrats took the Congress in 2006, the House and the Senate, on a promise to end the war. We're still in Iraq. Okay? And what I'm saying is that this campaign is challenging some of the fundamental policies of the party right now. Many of the candidates in this race not only voted to go to war, many of them, or they voted to fund the war, which keeps us at war. And so and they don't have a plan to end the war, they have a plan to stay in Iraq. What I'm saying is that I'm talking about a whole new direction. See, people will have this choice in this Democratic primary. And I think the Democrats are ready for that kind of a change. And so I see myself as being an independent inside the Democratic Party, a green inside the Democratic Party, a libertarian inside the Democratic Party, an anti-law person inside the Democratic Party. If we all come together, we can sweep out this corrupt politics and transform it. Last question. Please come up.
Hi, I'm Julianne. Met you before. Thanks for the House Resolution 333. You guys are talking about, why Democrats haven't done anything yet, and if they're not going to impeach Dick Cheney, then they don't have it, and they need our help. My question is, will you get these people to call Blumenauer and everybody they know to sign on?
Well, it's not whether I can get them to, but I would say that each one of you has the ability to call a member of Congress on this. I will talk one more time about impeachment. There was a moment in the first, and thank you for asking the question. There was a moment in the first debate, I don't know how many of you saw the first debate in South Carolina, where all the candidates were asked whether or not they supported impeachment. And there was a show of hands, and I was the only person who raised a hand to say, yes, I would. Now, I want to... Here's what I'd like to close with this thought about this country. If you can guarantee me a private jet back to Cleveland, I think we'll be in good shape. Here's what I'd like you to think about. The level of confidence people put in that job, the president, vice president, is such that it identifies America with, or we think, at least the mythical dimensions of those offices, identify Americans with who we are. Whether or not we agree with who's in the office, there's something about the office. And you would expect in the highest office to have the highest standards. And so, but we find, but if you have the lowest standards being expressed in the highest office, you then lower the bar of expectations for anyone who would come in that office. And so if someone wants to be president of the United States, and they're saying that they will not insist, right now, on those highest standards, what happens is that we then create a condition in this country where we lose our democracy. This is really a pivotal moment in this country. Somebody asked about energy. Look at the Cheney Energy Task Force. We couldn't get the minutes out because we're very sure that it's connected with the dominance that oil has in our economy. We know that oil companies were talking to the administration with maps spread out on tables before the invasion of Iraq, okay? We know that there's discussion going on about trying to privatize the oil of Iraq. We know that there's a plan for attacking Iran, and that's connected to oil. So here's where we are right now. We need to make a transition. If we want peace, we need to make a transition in our politics. This is what this campaign is about. I'm willing to run because I believe that it is possible to stand for these principles, that you don't have to sell out, that you can take a stand, that you can be courageous, that you can speak the truth, and that you can win. And you're the ones who make that determination. And if you believe, as I believe, that this country hasn't even tapped a fraction of the potential it has to achieve, to reflect the goodness of who we are, then organize with us. Join with us. Campaign with us now. Let's organize this area now. Let's organize fundraisers across this area. Let's show that the pulse of America is felt, not just in Portland, but this pulse is being felt strongly around this country. I tell you that we're right on the threshold of creating a whole new nation. And you feel it. You feel it here in Portland. And I can feel it across this country. Please join me in helping to make this a reality. I know that together we have the potential of transforming America, of reclaiming our country, of saving the world, and of having it been said of us, we were the ones who made the difference, we were the ones who mattered, we were the ones who had the blessing of courage and connected us with the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you so much, Jonathan. God bless all of you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Now there's a man who wants to be president, am I right?
Portland your kind of city?
Oh, yeah, I love Portland. I had a great response when you saw that people responded. Portland is my kind of city. And I'll tell you something. Portland has the kind of vision of connection with nature. If you're connected with nature, what's that? It's harmony. And if you understand harmony, you understand peace. So Portland understands the imperative of peace, and they understand how practical peace is. What could be more impractical than this war against Iraq? And so I stand for a practical approach to peace, and also one that links peace and prosperity. And Portland's a great place to start this national effort, and I'm really excited about it. Anybody else? Any other questions before we go?
My question is, your platform endorses the legalization of same-sex marriage. How would that expand the rights recently given to Oregon couples in domestic partnerships?
Well, I think it's absolutely a fundamental in a democratic society that people who are adults should be able to marry who they choose to marry. The state should be intervening and telling people that they can't make the choices they make. Now, churches have the right to do that, but states don't. So I think that it's a matter of standing for what is a basic right. Marriage equality is something that shouldn't even be in question. Thank you.
Moses Ross with the Multnomah County Democrats.
Hi, how are you?
You spoke of e pluribus unum in your speech. As the basis of our community, as the basis of our need to end the war, and the basis of a better America. Please explain that.
Well, the first motto of this country, e pluribus unum, Latin, out of many, one. And it spoke to the fact that when America was created, it was understanding that there was a lot of diversity. And at the same time, we knew that even with the diversity, there was a oneness. It was really a statement of human unity. When we understand that the way that we keep this world together is for people to have the chance to be united, we know human unity is an imperative for survival of the planet. So e pluribus unum then becomes the path to the future, not just about the past. It becomes an awareness that out of many, we are one. That we can have so many differences of race, color, creed, ethnicity, politics, but there's still an underlying oneness to us all. And when we know that, then we don't have to be fearful of one another. Then we can embrace each other as brothers and sisters instead of setting ourselves apart from each other. Out of many, we're one. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I want to thank you for being here. And Elizabeth, is there anything else you need to say? Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. We'll see you again. We'll be back here. Thank you. How are you? Good. Thanks. We'll see you again. Bye-bye. Ellen?
Love you, Dad!
Oh.